Hey there everyone, Hitesh here. Welcome back to another video, and in this video we'll be moving forward into our Stack Overflow clone and we'll be working through the login functionality as well as register functionality. One thing important to note, I will be talking about the core functionality part of it, and we won't be discussing much of the UI. We'll be depending majority of the time on the shadcn. But in case you don't want to use that, it's totally fine. You can just put a bare minimum email field, a password field, and a submit button. That's it. It will work fine. And we'll be focusing majorly on that. On top of that, whatever the styling and the UI you want to give, I'll walk you through. You can do so. Consider this as an exercise, or just bring the code from my GitHub. It's equally same. We are majorly focused on the functional part of it. With that said, if you're new onto the channel, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. And if you're already here, go ahead, put a comment in the comment box that says, hey, looking forward for the next video. We're putting up a target of just 150 comments. I hope we can do that. We can achieve that. A lot more people are watching it. It just takes a minute to just put a comment and it helps me a lot. So moving on, let me go ahead and share the screen with you. So this is the shadcn that we'll be installing, and we'll be also using some of the icons. Feel free to use any icon library. I just found it to be interesting one, so I'll just copy this one and come back here. We can close all of this now, and we'll be just installing this one this time. Feel free to use any library. The icons are just icons. I don't really care too much about them, at least for this project. So this is the one. Now, apart from this, we'll be using shadcn. So in order to have the shadcn, there is the installation command and there is a Next.js. And we don't want to use this whole thing because we have already got a project. We'll be just using this one. So go ahead and copy this. And this will ask you a couple of questions. And yes, we are ready to answer those questions. So come on, there we go. Initialize the shadcn so that we can use it. Default style New York, default is fine enough. And slate. Yeah, that's good enough. CSS variable colors, give me that. And rest of the stuff, it will automatically figure it out. Hope so. There we go. So now we have all the config.js, tailwind config, and compose, components, JSON. Yeah, everything looks good. If you have any more questions about it, you can just go ahead and read the shadcn. Now, the way how we use shadcn is you can import any of the buttons, any components up here, and the whole code of the shadcn lives inside your code base. So that's why everybody loves it. For example, couple of things that we'll be using a little bit later is going to be label and input. So for getting the label, here is the label guide. You can just copy this, npm, copy this, and there we go. And once I paste this, add label, just like this, I go ahead and enter this one. Now what this is going to do is it will go inside my components folder, will create a new folder inside it, UI, and all of my components lives inside there. So this is called label.tsx. So all code of the label. We'll be needing the input as well. It looks good. Name and email just like this. So I can just go ahead and copy this as an npm, and we can just paste it up here. There we go. So it will just bring the component. So that's how you bring the component, and what we need is just a form to work on with that. All right, so now that is clear, and that you already know that how to work with that. Now let's go ahead and create more of these folders and route and whatnot and all of these. So the first thing that I'll do is outside of the app, inside the source, I'll create a new folder. I'll use the parentheses for them. This is just the grouping. It doesn't affect the Next.js routing. I'm going to call this one as auth. So all of my authentication regarding stuff will come up here. I'll have two folders inside up here. The first one is going to be obviously login. Inside the login, we'll be creating a page. So yeah, that's page. So let's go ahead and start with that. Come on, why my mouse is not working? All right, so new file, there we go. And now keyboard is giving up. Page.tsx. Similarly to that, we'll create a new folder inside this one, and this one is going to be register. Feel free to call it as sign up, whatever you like. And inside the register, I'll have a new file, and we're going to call this one as page.tsx. All right, so we have two files inside the folders, and also one more file that we're going to create inside the auth is going to be a new file, and we're going to call this one as layout. This needs to be called as layout, otherwise it doesn't really work. So layout file, you might have seen already inside the app as well that there is a layout file. The whole idea behind the layout file is to have a wrapper around it. And once you have a layout folder in whatever the folder, all the subfolder and the subfiles actually are containerized inside that layout. So let's go ahead and write our own layout, and this layout is going to be based on this one. So let me open up the layout file. So this is the one. We don't need all these import statements and whatnot. We won't be using it. But this is the basic premises of having a layout. So I'll just copy this so that I can show you and we can have a discussion on this. So there we go. So there we go. This is how a classic layout file looks like. It has just the layout operations goes like this. So it has this. We won't be calling it as root layout. We will be calling it as cons, but I'll rewrite this file in a minute. So the whole idea is you have a layout file, and inside the layout file, you accept the childrens. These childrens are usually the React nodes, and you just display them. But how you display them is up to you, how you make a wrapper around it. In the case of outside template or outside layout, it wrapped everything inside the HTML. If you wish, you can wrap whole of the application with the navbar by just injecting a navbar here. So that's the whole idea behind this one. Now let me go ahead and rewrite this and recreate this one so that it's much easier for us to actually see that in action. We're going to call this one as layout. And this layout is going to be a classic JavaScript, just like that. So there we go. Once I have this layout, it's important that we go ahead and export this. This needs to be exported as default. Export default layout. So there we go. One task is done. Now, what do we do inside the layout? The first thing, if you are making any layout file, you need to expect that there will be childrens that will come up here. So there we go, children. You have to mention the data type of the children as well. So we're going to call this one as, this one will be children. And the type of the children is going to be React node. React node. So this whole layout is expecting that you will be passing me on some of the React nodes inside this one. Couple of things. Now what we can do is we can just ask whether there is a session or not. Because if there is a session already in existence, there is no point of keeping the user into the auth section, neither on the login, neither onto the register. So how can we make a query of that? For this, we can just go ahead and extract that do we have a session, and that session can easily come from use auth store. That's the store we created. So there we go. We can just ask and borrow a variable from it. If the session is there, then hey, there is a session. If it is not there, that means user is not logged in. Similar to that, we are going to go ahead and we're going to create a router as well. This will help us to push the user here and there wherever we want. So I'm going to go ahead and use next router for this one. There we go. Nice and easy. Now let's go ahead and check this. I want that as soon as this layout loads up, I would be able to check these things. So best way is to simply have this React, and inside the React, we can just go ahead and say use effect. All right. So use effect goes like this, and there we go, just like this. All right. Couple of things. We need to import the React. So should be fairly easy. We can destructure that as well. But I'll just import React from React, and that should be good enough. If you want to destructure, you can do that. No big deal there. All right, so now that we have this, now we can ask a question that if there is a session, as soon as it works, if there is a session, that means user should not be here. So we're going to say router.push. And where should we push? On the home page is good enough. So we'll be pushing that. And what are the dependencies of this one? The first one is session. As soon as the session is injected, we should reload this one. As soon as there's some change in the router, user has moved in, reloaded, whatever that is. So we'll work with that. Now, what happens in case the session is null? So if we can say if the session is there, then we don't want to do anything. We'll return the null. So there we go. So this part is good enough. So we are not working on anything. But if you wish, you can actually, since this is a layout, you can render the things inside some elements as well. I'll walk you through with that part as well. I'm going to go ahead and say I'll return. And inside the return, we can just go, if there is a session, we don't want to do that. And if there is no session, then obviously we want to load the children. So login and the register. In that case, I'll simply have a div. I will definitely add some classes in that, but later on outside this. And then we'll have a simple div. This div will also have some of these classes as well. that I'll inject later on. No such big deal. And inside this, we're going to go ahead and say that, hey, we want to load a children. That's it. So I hope this flow is pretty adjustable, pretty digestible, nothing much. If we have session, that's it, good, don't do anything. If you don't have any session, go ahead and return, load all the childrens that are there. So everything inside the login and register will be loaded up as a children into this one. So pretty straightforward, pretty nice and easy. And we were able to ask question from the use auth store that, hey, whether there is a session or not. Now let's go into register and we'll walk with the register as well. Or FCE. So there we go, React export. Let's just call this page as register page. Yeah, that's good enough. Register page, register, whatever you want to call, that's fine. All right, so how we actually work with this one? That's interesting. Now, in order to work with the register page, a couple of things we are going to require. We'll work through with that, because I'm not much interested in showing you that how I brought in the label or how I brought in the input. That's easy part. We have done that so many times on this channel. What I'm interested in, how this whole thing is going to work through. So let's first directly work with that. Let me walk you through the whole login process, and then we'll inject the classes and the containers. That's not a big deal. All right, so how we can work with this one. First of all, we need some states. So let's go ahead and grab the states. And before even we grab the states, let's see how we will be logging in the user or how we'll be creating the account. So let's just say we want to simply say create account. From where this create account is going to come in? You guessed it right. It's going to come from the use auth store. There we go. So we brought in create account from this one, and there we go. Hopefully I mentioned this one correct. Now there is also a chance that in this create account, maybe there is some processing going on. So we're going to go ahead and say const. This one is going to be is loading and set is loading. And that will be coming up from react.useState. There we go. You can destructure that as well. By default, we're going to mention that this is a false. Nothing is loading. There is also a chance that same thing might happen with the errors as well. So we'll by default get the error as like this. And in this one, we'll say, hey, this one is error. This one is going to be set error. So there we go. So error part is all done. Now comes up the interesting and the most interesting part, which is how you are going to handle the submit. There are a couple of ways. You can just mention an on-click event and can bring in all the details from the forms. I'll create a very classic form in which user just submits the form and all the data goes through it. So let's just create a simple method that says handle submit, because that's where the logic part is going to go. Obviously, this needs to be async. We don't do anything async in this case. It's talking to database. Now you can also go ahead and mention that what kind of data is going to come up. As of now, it's just an event that's coming in, and I can just go like this. Nothing wrong with this, but we can explicitly mention that what kind of event is coming up. In this case, we're going to go ahead and say react dot, and this one is a form event. There we go. Now inside the form event, we will be receiving some HTML elements. So that's even better. HTML, no suggestion, form element. There we go. Again, the more precise you can, the easier it is in the TypeScript and suggestion. The first thing you always do with all the forms is you prevent default, just like this. No big deal there. Okay, how do we plan this out? Now let's collect all the data from the form and then try to call the methods for that or evaluate that. So first we are going to say collect data. Then we are going to say validate whatever you can. All right, there we go, validate. Once you are validated, then call the store, because that's where all the functionality is. And then we have the response, and based on the response, we can work on with that. Let's plan it one by one. How do we collect the data? Collecting the data, form data is straightforward. We go like this, new form data, and inside the form data, we simply say e.current target. In case you have never done this, here's your first time. This always remains exactly same. And from this now form data, you can extract all these information. So we're going to say const, and this one is going to be, let's just say first name. It's up to you, whatever the data you are bringing in and how you are handling. So we're going to say form data dot get all the fields, whatever the fields you want to work with. I'm interested in getting first name. I'm also interested in getting last name. Let's go ahead and call this one as last name. I'm gonna lowercase all of this. And similarly, we can have one more, which can say email, which is compulsory field. And we can just go ahead and say email, one more compulsory field, which is password. And there we go. So all the data, whatever the data you want to bring in, you can just go ahead and bring that data. The method is exactly same. It's form.get. And this is not that get or post request, in case you are wondering. Now validation, how the validation works, totally up to you. I'll be just keeping it absolutely simple, just like this. If there is no first name, if there is no first name, or if there is no last name, or if there is no email, and if there is no password, there we go. Then I'll simply go ahead and set the error so that I can show you the error message. So I'll just use the set error, and set error, I'll use a classic callback into this one, and I'll just set this one as please fill out all the fields. There we go. Nice and easy, handled. Now, if the things are all good, now we want to call the store. Now, when we are calling the store, first of all, the state is now in the loading state. So set is loading. Let's mark that as true. And then after that, we want to set the errors as well. So set errors. Now error goes empty because, hey, we are happy with this. At least when you're calling the store, just before that, all the errors needs to go away. Now you can just go ahead and call the method, and this method needs to be called with await. We're going to say create account, just like this, pass on all the fields. And how can we pass on the fields? Now, a couple of interesting ways how you can do this, because we have just the name. So what we can do is we can convert this. So use the backtick, and let's just say we call this one as $, like this, and say first name, and then we can have a space on our own, and then can have a last name, just like that. So database only knows just the name. So that's one field that we have provided. Then we need to provide email. So we're going to say email, and better you can just go ahead and be sure to be a toString so that it works nicely. Oh, nice. The question mark, nicely done there. And apart from this, we can have a password as well. And that can also be a toString optionally. Nice. I like that. And what else? Email, argument type string, undefined is not assignable to parameter to string. We don't need this actually. I'm pretty sure this is there. But why is it giving me these errors? Shouldn't be giving me. Email is possibly null. All right, there we go. Although it shouldn't be. Let me check that. Oh, got it. And that's why some people love TypeScript, and including me. So I did a classic mistake up here, and I was wondering that why is it bothering? I've already taken care of the error. The problem was I never actually returned anything from here. So if I just do a return that we are exiting, now it is 100% sure that if we are reaching at this point in the code, then everything is good and email and passwords are present. I think it should not be bothering me now with this part. If I remove this, yeah, it is, because it needs to be 100% sure. It needs to be a string. Anyways, we got the idea. So now we can just hold the response. So response, just like this. There we go. Now, what do we want to do with this response? If the response contains some error, then we want to set the error. Otherwise, we are all okay. So let's just say we conditionally check that if the response, Appwrite gives us nicely these error messages. If there is a response error, we're going to use set error, just like this, and we'll use it like that. And we'll say response dot error, that is for sure is there. And optionally, if error is there, then not optionally, there should be a message inside this. So I'll forcefully try to extract a message out of it. There we go. And in the else case, we can just go ahead and say that, hey, everything is all good. You can just work with that. So probably we can log in the user with the same details and same response, because we have the email ID and password. If you wish, you can redirect him just onto other stuff, but I think we can log in the user as well. So let's go ahead and say, in that case, your account is created. Why not to just log in the user? I'll just say login. And can we bring the login from? It doesn't give me that suggestions. I have to bring in use auth store. Where we are using use auth store, here we are. create account, and there we go, login. Now we should be able to use it. So await login, you need to grab the email, which of course will be toString, and we'll be passing on the password, which of course will be toString. There we go, nice and easy. Now this is all done and good. Then we can say const login response. There we go. And if the login response is there, and there are chances that login response also might get troubled. If it is all good, then all good. Otherwise, it's logged in. And the rest of the part will be taken care of by our layout. So any session change or route changes, it will take care of that. I'll just take care of the error part. So if the login response has an error, then we can just simply say set error. We can just go like this, and same thing. We can say login response. If you have the error, then I would forcefully like to extract a message out of you. And we set the message. Once this is all done, I come out of this whole if and else block. Then I can simply say set is loading. Don't forget to turn it off. Is going to be false. So we can just go ahead, use it like this and say false. There we go. So nothing is loading. Everything is all good. So this is the majority of the part, and this is the logic. That's it. Now what you do inside this, it's up to you and how you want to proceed further and all of that. You can have a link of login. You can have the error messages being displayed. For example, I'll write that definitely. But if you want to show the error messages, you can start your JavaScript just like this. And can say if we have error, then we can mount a component just like this and can say that, hey, inside the p tag, I'll just go ahead and throw the error messages. Classic JavaScript and React 101. So that's the one part. In case you are wondering how the form will work, then you can simply go ahead and design. I'll definitely design a better form. We don't need action into this one. We just need the submit. That's the on submit. This one is going to say handle submit. That's it. Now the most important part inside this is there needs to be a couple of input field, the first name, the last name, and the email and the password, and that's it. After that, a button which simply is of type submit, and that's it. So that's it. I will be writing that, but I don't want to bring too much of the detail of the CSS and all these things. Yes, we have designed it much better, so I'll just copy paste that. That's more of a CSS part, not the functionality part of it. So I'll do this and you'll be finding everything inside my GitHub repo. Now I would like to take you on to the login part so that I can walk you through how the login functionality work. And then again, I'll come back and finish onto this one. Don't want to bog you down with the details of it. All right, so come back onto the login part, or FCE, React functional export. This is going to be my login page. There we go. All right, so how does the login page works? First of all, we need to grab the login. So const extract login, no suggestion. This will be coming up from use auth store, just like that. And we'll be needing same errors and same loading, so we can actually borrow them up. Instead of writing them again, let's go ahead and say all of this. Copy this and paste it up. So there we go. Now we have messages for this. Same goes up here as well. You will be needing a method to handle the thing. So let's do a revision. I think you'll never forget after this one. So this one is going to be const. Let's call this one as handle submit or handle login submit, whatever you wish. It needs to be async because we'll be talking to the database. It accepts an event and we can just go like that. Nothing wrong in that, just like I said a few minutes ago, but the event, the more you specifically mention what type of event is coming up, that's better. And we know that the event that's coming up is react.form event this time. Further, we can, it's happy right now, but we can further mention it in the form event, what type of elements are coming in. So the elements that are coming up are HTML form element. There we go. We can mention that. Once you do it, you never forget it, and you are doing it twice. So that's fine. Okay, what's the first step? If you remember, anybody can tell me in the comments. What's the first step when you handle the form? The first step is always prevent default. There we go, event.prevent default. Now collect the data, same stuff. Collect data, then validation, and then use or simply login, and we're going to use that from store. And then handle the responses. We can do that. So let's start one by one. How do we collect the data? we simply go ahead and say form data, and form data is going to come up from new form data, and inside this we'll say e.current target. Now let's extract one by one each information. In the login form we have just the email and password. So we'll say form data, you give me a .get, there we go. And we'll be grabbing the email. Similar to this, we'll be grabbing password. And there we go, password, there we go. So now the data is with us. Now the next step is to validate this data. So let's come back here and we'll say if there is no email or if there is no password, that's it. I don't want to proceed further. So before that, I'll set the error and I'll go like this. And now you're seeing the speed run. Yeah, that's what happens once you go with quite a lot of inside the application. Please fill all fields. And this time I'll not forget that I have to return so that errors doesn't come away. All right, so this is all good. Now let's see how we can log in. Login should be fairly straightforward in this case. We're going to go ahead and say await, and we'll use the login that we brought in. Now inside the login, go ahead and pass on email.toString, and we'll be passing on the password and password.toString. There we go. Two things are being passed on. And why is it having an issue? There we go. String is not assignable to parameter. Didn't we mention that this, oops, there we go, should be happy now. This one should also be happy now. Once we are up here, then we are going to go ahead and handle this response first. So const login response, there we go. Now let's conditionally check if we got any errors. So we'll say login response. If it has error, then I would like to forcefully extract out the error. And there we go. We simply go ahead and say login response, please give me the error. And since error is there, I will forcefully extract a message out of you. There we go. And did we set up any time when we are doing this? No, we didn't set up that there should be a set error state. We didn't clean them up. I think we should write them. Handle loading and errors. So now we can do that up here. Set is loading, and that loading is going to turn into true. And similarly, this will go ahead and say set error, and that error also needs to go away empty. There we go. We'll need to have one more instance of loading, so we'll just go and move it back just after everything is all done. So this is the right place, and we'll turn it into false. There we go. Nice and easy, nothing much to worry about. All right, that is it. And same goes up here. I'll be adding my forms and links and all of that. I have already brought in the labels and the input. I'll just throw them up. You can just copy paste them from the GitHub. But this is the functionality part. And a login I have taught so many times about the MongoDB login, the Appwrite login. So I think this shouldn't be a big deal. So there we go. Now you understand the logic part of it. And by the time we meet in the next video, I'll just copy paste the login and the beautiful form that we have designed for this one. So there we go. Login and registration part is all done and is all sorted out with the store Zustand, and we are checking for the sessions and everything. So this flow is absolutely awesome and works nicely. And one thing I think we forgot to do is, yeah, that's important one. So one thing that we forgot to do is very important. So all of these things, sessions and everything are coming up from, and this needs to be, whenever you're using any React or hooks of the React, you need to make all these components as client-side components. So you have to say use client. Otherwise, things are not going to work. Thank goodness I remembered this. Otherwise, you would be struggling in the error. And then you will say, I didn't mention it. I'm mentioning it right now. There we go. And we can simply say use client. Wherever you use React hooks, we need to make them client components. So client component, login also needs to be client component. And we'll say use client. There we go. Converted them all into the client component. Should be all good. There we go. Rest of the stuff is just shadcn bringing in and throwing them up. That's it. So that's it for this video. Hope you have enjoyed this. Don't forget to put the comment, and yes, we have handled the authentication whole part through the Appwrite. So that's it, your Appwrite authentication crash course with Zustand and Nextjs, of course. Let's catch up in the next video.